Well, when we came here about 6.5 years ago, I had only really been in one church for 40 years. So I was a little apprehensive, wanting to find a new church family. And I was so amazed when we got here, the quality of the pastors here. And I think that really speaks well of Brian, who's our lead pastor, and I appreciate him very much. And I just want to call you up, Brian. We're anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, good afternoon. Good to see you. I don't get to see all of you as often as I used to with video venues and things like that. You see me, but I don't see you, right? Plus, I have this opportunity to share our preaching platform with a few of our other pastors who are completely capable handlers of the word. And so I'm not up front as often. It's good to see some faces I haven't seen in a while. So, and some of you do not attend Foothills Church. I recognize that. And so my name is Brian Long. I'm in my 27th year pastoring Foothills Church. So I started when I was 12, and so I have 3 children who all moved out of the state of California. Can you imagine that? Yeah, and some of you know Sam. Sam, he married my oldest daughter, and he was on staff with us for 10 years, and that wasn't my fault. That was, he applied for the job, and I stepped back, and I let the board decide whether or not he should be on our team. But he served on our team for 10 years, and then took my 3 grandkids to Tennessee. So if don't pray for him. If you're praying for him, don't stop. You can stop. And now I learned that we have a 4th grandchild coming. So Sam and Britt have a 4th grandchild coming for us in September. Yeah, so that's happening. My middle daughter, Kaylee, she actually works on our staff, but she's remote. She does all of our publications and all of our graphic art design stuff. Her and her husband live in Colorado. He's a petroleum engineer and works in downtown Denver. And so she works remote. We contract with her graphic arts company to do all of our stuff. She and Will have been trying to have children for a couple of years now. And she had 3 miscarriages in 9 months this last year. So that was a heartbreak, and so they have started because I'm learning all these things. Once you lose 3 babies and miscarriage, you're considered high risk pregnancy. And so she started with the IVF, the whole IVF process, which I knew nothing about, very little about, and now I know a lot more about. And so they're about midway through the whole process, and it sounds like they've harvested eggs, and they're going to implant them in the end of March, early April, one at a time. And they have told the Lord that whatever embryos He allows to survive that process, they will have that many children. So we shall see. It looks like it's going to be a max of 6. So Lord bless them, and you can be praying for them. Honestly, they are going to be the most amazing parents. You wonder sometimes why things happen, right? You wonder why do, like for them, as an example, I mean, they're both just Jesus-loving, full heart towards God, and raised and have solid families, around them, great support network, great support family around them and all that. And, why is that happening? No one knows, right? But it's actually part of what I want to talk about today, these lessons that I'm learning about, let's just say life. I thought I was getting old enough to where I wouldn't be learning new things. I thought I'd learned it all. The big things, the important things. but I found out I'm still in preschool. So that's my middle daughter. Pray for them. And then my youngest child is Jack. He's a boy. He and his wife live in Nashville as well, in the Nashville area. He's a videographer, and his wife is a photographer. And when he told me he was moving to Nashville to become a videographer, my first thought was, get a real job. It can't happen. You'll never work. Get it out of your system now while you're young, and then get a real job, right? Well, he and his wife have figured out how to make quite a living at this whole thing. So again, I'm learning, and they have no children, and they're still. Well, my son turns 30 this year. Good grief. He was 3 when I came to this church. So I'm learning a lot of lessons, and I want to show you 3 images to start, pictures, and I want to talk about these images a little bit, and then I want to take you to 4 different scriptures. 2 of them remind us of the lessons that we will continue to learn no matter how old you are. And the other 2 are promises that I think will encourage you, okay? So let me show you the first thing. Oh, it's already up. The first image is this image of these grapes. These are not my grapes, but I have some grapes at home. And I planted them. We lived in that house for 26 years. So I planted these things like 25 years ago. And I thought, I want to plant grapes because Jesus talks a lot about grapes, and there's lots of lessons in it and all of that. And so, I'm the vine branches. So I thought, well, that'll be cool. I mean, is it more appropriate to have a pastor have grapes, right? And these aren't wine grapes, just so you know, you can relax. These are table grapes, just so we're all kosher. And so these table grapes, I planted them. Man, I prepared this space. It's the perfect space on my lawn, on a little bit of a hill, well-draining soil, lots of sun, no shade, shading them. They're in the perfect spot, get good air circulation. And I planted these vines in a straight row, just 4 of them. I felt like I could manage 4. So I got 4 grapevines. And I put my irrigation system all sophisticated right over the roots, and I timed the watering, and I sought input from some grape wizards in the area about what you're supposed to do and fertilize and what you need to spray and how you need to cultivate, and the importance of trimming and cleaning off your blade when you trim so you don't spread disease. And I did it all. And of course, the first 3 years, on a new vine, no grapes. Okay, that's fine. I knew that. I expected that. So from then on, the grapes I was getting were about the size of a pea. And so I was like, what is going on? There was a gentleman in our church who was actually the president of the El Dorado County home winemakers. And so I sought the Yoda of winemaking. And I asked him what was it, and he gave me all these suggestions of what to do, and sophisticated bark cutting and all this stuff. And I was like, I can't even. And so I did some of the specific kinds of pruning things and timing and all of that, and then he said something to me one time. He said, grapes have to struggle. And I was like, what? Yeah, he said, I think you need to cut the water to them. I'm like, what? I have a garden, and I'm not a great gardener, but I can grow like the normal stuff, like squash and tomatoes and stuff. And I do pretty good at that. But I was like, you cut the water, that makes no sense to me. So I just dialed it back a little. And next year, the grapes were maybe a tad bigger than a pea, but fewer of them. I'm like, what? Well, then I just like, you know what? I just turn the water off. Forget it. I'm just going to let these things die. I'm just going to let them die. So I just turn all the water off. And then I would get like some decent grapes, and then all of a sudden there'd be all this white stuff on them, all this, this like fungus or whatever. And I'd be like, God, I didn't even want to eat it. I didn't even want to touch them. Eat it. Well, a few years ago, during a big winter storm, one of my trees fell on them. And it busted one of the vines completely in half, bent the T-bar that I had the wire hooked to that had them all strung up on. It was a disaster. And at that point I said, you know what, I'm just going to cut those things down. Forget it. So I ignored them. And I turned the water off. I didn't fertilize them. I just pruned them, just cut them back like just so I wouldn't have to mess with anything. And do you know that next year, I got fat, size of your thumb grapes, and all bunches of them, like huge bunches of them. I was like King David. Carrying them, on my shoulder. I was so happy, and I thought, I always remembered his words to me. Grapes have to struggle. And I thought, man, now there's a lesson I don't want to learn. Right? You want to read about that lesson. You don't want to experience it. Well, I'm thinking, that's so gracious of the Lord to let me experience that with my grapevines. Well, I haven't watered them since. And I only prune them. I prune them really like haphazardly and harsh. And I'm getting the best grapes ever. And I get them all at once. This is the downside. I get them all at once and have to, I have to figure out I got to talk to Edie Cohn and figure out how to make grape jelly or something. Because I get all these grapes and I can't eat them fast enough. But it only lasts like 2 weeks. But it's still fun. So keep that story in mind. Let me go to the next slide. This is a picture of a monarch butterfly trying to break out of its cocoon. Maybe you've heard of similar stories, but it's my understanding that and I think I actually did this as a kid. Like I would see, they weren't monarchs in Ohio, they were some other butterfly, but I would see them kind of break out of the cocoon. And I'm like, oh, poor thing's struggling. The wings are. I'll just rip it open and help him. Free the butterfly, and then it would just kind of like flutter on the ground and right. And it's my understanding that if you try to like make it easier on the butterfly to help them out of cocoon, you'll ruin them. Isn't that interesting? They have to have the struggle. They have to get the right muscles to, I don't know if butterflies have muscles, but you know what I mean. They have to fly right. And to have coordination, and for wings to develop right, and all that stuff. They gotta fight their way through that. Isn't that weird? But that's true. You guys know that. Next slide is a crucible. Chemistry was my worst class in school. And the hard part is that my youth pastor was my teacher, my chemistry teacher. My junior high youth pastor was my chemistry teacher. So that was not good. But I don't know whether it was him or me or whatever. I think it was me. I just didn't have aptitude for, science and stuff. If I could retake that now, I think I would do a lot better because I kind of understand more stuff. But I was clueless. But this crucible, one of the things I learned in that is that this process of heating that up to extreme heat, it burns out and purifies and filters out the impurities, right? In whatever, the metal or whatever you're molting in there. And so the higher you can get that, the more intense you can get that, the more pure. You see how these lessons aren't ones that we really like to learn? So two things that all three of these images point me to. Two things. The first one is you're never too mature to mature. You're never too mature to mature. Notice in Corinthians, this is Corinthians 4, I had Andrew make my slides, and for some reason he didn't put the rest of the address on there, but it's 2 Corinthians 4. And this is where Paul is talking about struggles in life, and he says, but this is why we never give up when it comes to struggles. Though our outward bodies are, the NIV, this is the NLT, but the NIV says, though our outward bodies are wasting away. Boy, you feel that? Huh? I'm 63 and I'm feeling it. I don't know what, I know. You can pray for me, I'm a wimp. Though our outward bodies are wasting away, our spirits or our inward heart is being renewed every day. Do you realize that? This I hope is encouraging to you, because it tells me that even though I'm struggling with plantar fasciitis, how many know what that is? You all do, don't you? Yeah. My right foot, plantar fasciitis. So I'm limping around. Even though that's happening, even though my shoulder is jacked up and I can't lift any weight with it, and it's like, I'm like Walt, Mondale, Dole. Even though those things are happening, and even though our bodies, as we get older, obviously don't regenerate as well, don't heal as well, all of that. And it feels like probably to most of us that you never know what you're going to wake up with the next day. Even though all that's happening, this tells me that the Spirit of God is active, doing something internal to us, that He's using probably those struggles to strengthen us, to grow us, to mature us. I have felt like over the last, I'm going to say since COVID. So what's that? 5 years? 4 years? 4.5 years? I'm going to say since then, I feel like God has been taking me, my family, my spouse, my bride Cindy, taking us through some hard things that have pushed my ability to cope. Do you ever feel like God calls you into things that you don't have the elasticity to stretch with as well as you used to? Or maybe the knowledge or the depth of relationship you have with Him, or whatever. I'm not sure what all the dynamics are, but whatever. You don't have, the struggle and what it's demanding of you outpaces your ability to cope. So you feel stretched, you feel stressed. You feel like for the first time, what you thought you would never question, you're questioning. What you thought you would never be a little uncertain about, you have questions. Is that? I don't want to freak you out like your pastor's in a one step away from whatever, but this is real life. This is real life, and so. What it's telling me is that God's at work, and the hope that this kind of a text gives me is that God's at work doing some renewing, and even though it doesn't feel that way to me, does the butterfly feel good about its breaking out of the cocoon process? We'll never know. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, I think that struggle, Peter Scazzaro has written a book called The Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And he borrows from research from other people, but he talks about these phases of life and how we start out, and once it's kind of an easy phase, particularly as Christians, we kind of learn who Jesus is. We're grateful for our salvation. We're floating on cloud nine with all that. And then we begin to learn to disciple and grow, and we've got some things we feel good about, and then we hit a wall. Then we go through a process or a struggle or a challenge, which really causes us to dig deep and really test our endurance with those things, and test our faith, and really say, how far is your faith? Are you going to let your faith take you? That kind of thing. And so he talks about working through that wall, and once we are, if we're able to, as the butterfly would break out of its cocoon, if we're able to move out of that and move through the wall and move through that whole season, we emerge a whole different sort of quality of person, a whole different kind of quality of faith, a whole different kind of a depth of understanding of what love is, and what grace is, and what mercy is, and those kinds of things. Things that I feel like I used to think, I mean, gosh, I was adding it up the other day. I think I was 13 years in school, post-high school. 4 years of college, 4 years of seminary, 5 years in a doctorate program. I mean, I had to know some stuff. But now I'm really learning some stuff. Here's the next one. Oh, you already switched it. Efforts to escape these struggles, efforts to avoid the difficulties, just make your life worse. Have you found this? For my people have done two evil things, it's Jeremiah. They've abandoned me, the fountain of living water, and they've dug for themselves cisterns, broken, cracked cisterns that can hold no water at all. And I don't know a better description of the human challenge, the Christian challenge than right there. And what too often happens is we get into these seasons of faith challenge, or we get in these seasons of struggle, and we too frequently want to address the pain of it and the heartache of it by somehow self-medicating in some way. And self-medicating can be shopping, it can be zoning out on reality TV or Netflix, it can be alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever, pornography. You can, there's a jillion things the world offers to numb that pain that you feel. Huh? Ice cream, there you go. Perfect. Self-medication drug of choice. It can be ice cream, yeah. It can be lattes. It can be, it can be anything. Whatever can maybe, be. Well, I deserve this. I need this. I need to take the edge off. Well, what do they say when they take the edge off? That's the edge is that pain, that angst. I want some calm. I want some peace. I want to ease this pain. And so we choose these things, and the culture offers, and I feel like the culture is coming up with new ways for us to self-medicate it all the time. Scrolling on a social media app, whatever. Watching YouTube videos for hours. I don't know if maybe that doesn't relate to you, but these are all cisterns that we try to build. These are all cisterns that we try to build to hold water that will resource us and refresh us and fuel us. And Jeremiah says the problem is they're broken and they hold no water. And so when you go to them to get fueled again, they're dry. They in the end, they don't satisfy, right? And so that's why I say efforts to escape or avoid that, whenever God's taken us through hard seasons, if we try to short circuit it somehow, if we try to shorten it, we try to take a quick out, we act out in some way just to kind of relieve the hurt or whatever, that will end up backfiring on us, and it will only make it worse. I can't tell you the number of times that I've talked with people, and even in my own life, have learned that when I've tried to escape, I've just gotten tangled more. Make sense? When I've just tried to escape it, it ends up tangling me more. And so this is an important lesson. The next lesson, this is a hope-filled one, I hope. Jesus is the only source of real fulfilling life. I love this passage where Jesus is telling the disciples all this hard truth, and he's telling them hard truth, and disciples are bailing by the tens and 20s. They're bailing. They're like, I can't take it. What he's talking about is too hard to just comprehend or digest or live by. And so they're leaving. And then Jesus turns to Peter and he says, well, aren't you going to go too? And I love his response. He said, Lord, where would I go? You have the words of life. See, what cistern would I try to tap? You're the living water. What if I try to bail on this struggle and just kind of piece out on it and act out on it or whatever and just ignore it, it's not going to satisfy. If I try to sweep this under the rug, it's still going to be there. In fact, it's only going to be worse. Remember, if the more you're entangled and you try to get out of it, you ignore it, you're going to get more entangled. And it really comes down to this recognition. Every option that might come to my mind that seems like a good idea to me to avoid this, it's not going to satisfy. You're not going to grow, you're going to spin. You're not going to move forward, you're going to stay stuck. And it will just continue to cycle in a bad cycle and actually get more intense and have more pain or more loneliness or whatever it is that's at the core of it. And because whatever else we choose other than Jesus doesn't satisfy. Where else would we go? You have the words of life. And the final slide is this one. These are two texts which, similar to the first one, it teaches us that pain is productive. If I am working out, or if I'm going to my chiropractor or a physical therapist or something, which I've done at different times over the years, and sometimes especially those physical therapists with this whole shoulder thing I got. So they try to say, well, you got to push your arm to the wall all the way back, and then go like this. Well, that hurts. So I don't want to do that. You guys know Dennis Michelle, Dr. Michelle. Some of you know Dennis Michelle. Dennis was my doctor for years, and he used to crack me up and annoy me all at the same time. You'd go into him and say, it hurts when I do this. He goes, well, then stop doing that. He was joking, but sometimes that when pain is productive, if we understand that pain is productive, we can cooperate with it better. Is that fair? We can endure it. We can push through it. We recognize Jesus is involved from the previous text. He's renewing our spirit. If we know he's involved, we know he's present. If we know he's watching over our lives, if he's at the helm of all of it and in the middle of all of it, then we can push through it. So we can rejoice when we run into problems and trials because we know that they help us develop endurance strength, character. Notice, strengthens our confident hope of salvation. And this hope will not lead to disappointment. So you never have to wonder if as you're walking through, struggling with, praying through, crying through, whatever struggle or pain or heartache, you don't have to wonder if it's going to be productive at the end, if it's going to be good, if it's going to be, am I going to work through all this and then just be like, it wasn't worth it? No. This tells me it's worth it. Right? I think that's, if I'm reading my Bible right, and this hope will not lead to disappointment. This last one, our present troubles are small. Apparently doesn't know my life. That's what all of us think. For our present troubles are small and they won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them all and will last forever. So I share those things with you because I have been more authentically reminded of those realities. Not just in my stupid grapes, but in real life. And I think I'm still definitely in school with all of that, aren't you? I think we all are. But I hope this gives you a sense of, A, you're not alone in that. B, the reality is the struggle is productive when Jesus is in the middle of it and when we're staying faithful and true. Now, sometimes people can be going down this path, hit heartache, hit gut ache, hit soul emptiness, and they try those other things we were talking about. They can try those things, and then they have greater pain. There's usually greater pain involved in that, and that's not the pain I'm talking about. I'm talking about the pain that we go through, that natural life sort of takes us through, and it's not simply consequences from really bad choices. I'm talking about things that we just happen to us, or things that other people do to us. So our sinning or being sinned against is all kind of a part of that, and it's a part of life. But staying focused on staying hope-filled, staying connected to Jesus and reliant on his Spirit, it's not sexy sometimes. Probably not a right word to use. It's not attractive sometimes, but it's true. And where else will we go? He has the words of life. So we stay tuned. And sometimes it lasts a long time. Sometimes the struggle lasts a really long time. Sometimes a new reality emerges up for you. A new reality. This is your new life. This is life for you now. Whatever that looks like. And it's different. And it won't change this side of heaven. So is the struggle in that just annoying and useless and frustrating and what a bummer, can't wait to get to heaven? Or is God is it possible that God can be working in the middle of that and renewing us in ways we have no idea, and maybe we won't know until the other side, right? I don't know. So I don't have a lot of answers for you. I'm still in school with all of that, but maybe that will give you some food for thought in the struggles that I know each of you have, and the battles that you are involved in. I know that's what it means to be human, right? You have any questions for me? Related to that or related to anything else? I don't remember how much time I had. Okay, let me pray. Father, we've spent some time thinking about life and thinking about your word and how it integrates with us in such important ways. And I pray that our hearts would continue to remain open to what you are teaching us and how you're molding us and shaping us. And sometimes the fire that we go through, the crucible, it's really unpleasant. But we can walk through it knowing you're with us. So thank you for that. And we're trying to struggle to break through and break out of something. I pray that you would walk with us through that as well, and not allow it to go on any longer than it needs to in order for you to build into us what you're intending to build into us. Thank you for that promise that there's no useless pain, and that the struggles we go through, the hardships, the frustrations, all of it, it's all contributing to a kind of character build in us and a kind of faith shaping and faith quality shaping in us. And for that, we give you thanks. And so we give it all to you in your name. Amen.